Hey everyone, and welcome to my review of the Apple Watch Series 6. So I've had this watch for roughly around 2 weeks now, and what I wanted to do is, with this being my first Apple Watch, I wanted to give it a good chance, a good couple of weeks at least, to actually make use of it in basically my lifestyle before I actually posted anything regarding it. So the main reason why I haven't actually purchased a Apple Watch prior to this, prior to the Series 6, was down to basically requirements, and basically right now in my life and in my sort of work situation as well. I think it's kind of the perfect situation for where the Series 6 kind of just fit in exactly where it actually becomes useful to me. And because of that, obviously that's the main reason why I actually went ahead and purchased it. Initially it was literally just a case of, I was thinking that it would be a useful tool that I'd use probably every now and then, but as it turns out, it's actually been a lot more useful to me than I originally envisaged. So basically what I'll do is I'll quickly break down the good things and also some of the things that I don't quite like as much. And what I'll do is I'll go through the dislikes first, because there's not that many. And one of the dislikes essentially comes down to the fact that I've not actually used watches for quite some years, and that is basically the shape of the back of the watch. So because you have this sort of protruding area, this sort of lump if you like, it does take a little getting used to if you've not worn a watch for quite a while, in terms of how this actually applies the pressure. So I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it just there, but basically what I do is, at home, what I do is I make use of the braided loop, because this band is just incredibly comfortable, and it's very easy to actually adjust as well. But whenever I'm at work, what I tend to do is I switch it out, and I've tried a few different ones. I've tried the solo loop, the sport loop, as well as the just the normal sport silicone band as well. And the sport silicone band is probably the one that I'll be using at work, for the simple reason that basically I can wipe it down and everything and basically wash it. So obviously right now with COVID and everything, we want to be careful about making sure that we're washing everything. I do the same thing with the actual screen as well. So I've actually got a screen protector, and this is pretty much necessary for when I'm at work. Mainly, as you can see, it's already been scuffed in a few areas. And as it turns out, even though I ordered the blue one, it looks like this is actually a clear plastic underneath. And then they've literally just coated the top in whatever colour that you actually request. But this is something that obviously I use it at work, so then I'm not actually touching the physical screen. And then once I finish work, I can just take this off and wash this, sterilise it and everything, to make sure I'm not bringing anything back home with me. Coming back to the watch itself, as I say, one of the things that took a little getting used to was the fact that the lump on the back, and because of the fact that I've actually been using this with sleep tracking essentially. So because of that, I've been wearing it overnight, and basically it's just a case of getting used to having it on your wrist at night, because I tend to sometimes roll over and sleep on my arm, and if this rolls over and just goes onto the actual bone there, in the morning I'll actually wake up and it'll be a little sore. It's never actually woken me up, but obviously that's something that I've noticed in the mornings. But strangely enough, as soon as I've taken it off, gone to shower up and everything, because that's generally what I tend to do, I leave it on overnight, and what I'll do is in the morning I'll pop it on charge as soon as I get up, and basically by the time I've showered up and everything, usually it's charged enough to where it's going to last me the day. Sleep tracking itself, obviously it's not massive amounts of information that it's pulling at the moment, but it does tie into one of the main reasons why I actually love this watch so much. And that's basically to do with all the health benefits that you're getting as a result of it, because it does actually motivate you to do more. So if we just come into weekly summary, as you can see, being between 600 calories daily move goal, and I don't know if it'll give us a separate, just cancel out that. At the moment I'm looking through the phone screen, so it is a little awkward, but something like the steps, for example, the steps that I've actually been doing in the week has been a lot higher. What I'll do is I'll post in from the iPhone, because I'll be able to get a lot more easier visual of basically the data it's pulling. But whilst I've been at work, obviously if you take a look at this particular home screen, and basically this one is my work home screen, and I have basically sunrise, sunset. I then have the health data there, so at a glance I can quickly get all the information, and I've been targeting basically above 10,000 steps per day whilst I've been at work, and that was during a night shift as well. Bottom right is basically one of the great things I love about the watch, which is the complication. So being a Muslim, obviously prayer times is something I'm checking, and you roughly know what time it is every day anyway, but being at work, sometimes what I do is with my breaks and everything, I want to take them at such time where it's, say for example, if I've just finished a task, I want to just quickly glance to see, okay, yeah, it's the next time has started, so I can then quickly go and pray and then get back to work again straight after. I do have a couple of complications, a couple of apps installed for the prayer times, and this one, it works well in the sense that it gives us a countdown. However, the timings aren't quite as good as the ones on, I believe it's this one. So this one is the Azan Pro app on the iPhone, and with this one basically what you do is you adjust the times on your phone to match your local calendar, and then it actually adjusts on the watch. On the other one at the moment, for some reason, even when you've made your adjustment on the phone, it doesn't actually adjust on the watch properly. So this is close, but it's not quite exact. Yeah, so as I was saying, so location in the middle of the main complication is the weather and stuff like that. That's just so then, because I work 3 shifts, I start early, I finish late, those kind of things. I want to know what the temperature is going to be like, both when I start as well as when I finish, so I know whether it's basically going to take me longer to actually defrost the car and everything. Calendar and date, I need those all the time, basically for filling out some forms and stuff at work. Coming on to the home watch face, if you like. So top right is pretty much the same. Top left, we've got the temperature, outdoor temperature, and then I'm using this sort of bigger complication with all the times. As I said, I have tried the other one where it basically gives you the countdown, but as I say, because it's not quite fully accurate, I have contacted the developer, but I've not heard back yet. And then what I've got is on this one also, I have basically my health data, all your rings and everything. And then on this particular one, what I've also got is I've got Lifx. So this is for controlling all my lights, and as you'll see in the background, if I change this to red, you can see that the room's gone to red, and if I change it back to blue, you'll see it'll go back to blue. So that's a cool little app complication that I've got there just for controlling the lights. And this, to be honest, mainly I only use for when I'm doing my videos. And then next to that, this is the big one for me, obviously it's the HomeKit one. Now the HomeKit, whilst I'm happy that you do have all of the I'll just hit the top one. So I'm happy that you have control over everything, but I'm not so happy that it's not actually in the same format as the TV and the iPad and the iPhones with tvOS and iOS 14, where they've got rid of, on those ones what they've done is, so at the top what you get is you get all your scenes. So all your scenes come up first, and then you get down onto your actual icons themselves. All these are all your devices. But if I scroll a little further, what you'll notice is on this section, we still have sensors. So we've got temperature sensors here. So all of these are temperature, humidity, motion sensors. And then if I come down further, we'll come on to all your window sensors and things like that. So that's something that obviously on iOS 14 and tvOS 14, iPadOS 14, they've actually got rid of all of those. But the cool thing is you've still got access to your cameras. So these, whilst it's not as fast, it does actually work. You can't adjust volume or anything for that. For any sound to work on these, you do actually need it to be paired to something else, so headphones or something like that. So that's cool that I can access all the cameras directly on the watch. And the one downside is it doesn't seem to work on 4G for some reason, even though I've actually used this whilst out on somebody else's Wi-Fi connection, and I've had internet connection as fast as 170, 180 meg down. So it's not a speed issue, but for some reason it doesn't allow you to, it just doesn't go through on 4G. So I'm not sure whether that's just a bug at the moment, but basically it's a cool little useful tweak. And what I have found is Siri works quite well as well, so with any of your home devices. So if I just try this out, turn off the front room light. turn off the front room light.
Understood. Request sent.
And what it does do is it will take a few seconds, so it's not
Your
quite...
device is not responding.
Okay, that's fine. But yeah, what it does do is it's not quite as instant as the phone, the TV, and the iPad, where they're instant. Whereas with this, what tends to happen is after you've sent the request, it'll actually take a couple of seconds. It'll probably take about 2 to 3 seconds. And I think the main reason for that, yeah, so if we just run a speed test, what you'll notice is, despite this, it was actually announced that obviously this is the first Apple Watch that actually comes with 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi as opposed to just the 2.4. So despite having the faster capabilities of the Wi-Fi, this particular one, as you'll see from this, testing download and upload speed, it's been limited. That's the only thing I can think of, because I've never seen a device where the results are quite so slow. So it's basically the maximum you ever get, and your pings generally can drop a lot lower, so it can be probably around 30 to 60, but your uploads and your downloads generally tend to be around 3 maximum. So obviously it's limiting the throughput, the speed, for the watch on purpose. I'm guessing to try and preserve battery life or something like that. So for that reason, I think that's why the HomeKit isn't quite as snappy as on all the other devices, mainly because basically it's just not got the same speed on the main device. So basically it's having to send that signal to your home hub, being your Apple TV or whatever, and then that obviously sends out the request. But coming back to the watch, so obviously that's one of the things that I really love, the fact that you can have different setups. So this is my work setup, this is my home setup, and then I've got a few other ones. So whenever I'm watching football and I want to know all the scores and everything, you've got this where you can just have a quick complication right there. Whenever I'm watching football, I tend to message people, so because of that I've got my messages one there. And similarly again, I can have my prayer times and things like that on every single one. And then we've got a dedicated sports one, and then I've got a couple of these ones where these are just more like full screen ones. I do like this one, but I don't tend to use it very much, apart from just basically when I want to show off the watch, show off the screen. The screen itself it's not as immersive as sometimes the pictures make out, mainly because of the fact that I have been using the cover quite a bit, and obviously that does add quite a little bit of an extra chunk. What I also find kind of weird about this particular face is if I just put it into sleep mode, so let's cover it up, I find it quite strange in terms of how the lines on this actually react, because if you're in a bright room, what tends to happen is sometimes you'll get weird sort of areas of black, where obviously it's trying to differentiate the time, but say for example it's 3:30 or something, or 4:30, which is when I was actually testing something, and this whole area of the screen almost looked as though it was flickering while it was off, because it didn't really know whether to be on or off. So if I just wake it up. Now, with regards to the always on display and waking it, I've never had a situation where I've actually turned it off. So I always leave always on display enabled, and I've also never had a situation where I've turned the watch and it's not actually reacted in time. So I know some people have actually complained that it's not fast enough for them, and basically because of that, basically they have to enable the always on display. I don't know whether having the always on display makes it faster or not, but I've never had the situation where I turn it away and then I turn it back and it's not lit up and it's not active. For those people out there that basically just want to extend the battery life as much as possible, they can obviously disable the always on display. Now there is something that I have disabled, and that is the Siri, Hey Siri command, as well as the raise to speak. Both of those, I just found them annoying, because at work, whenever I was working above my head, I'd raise my arm to do something and it'd basically be listening in the background. And similarly again, with the Hey Siri, I find it just as easy. If I need to use Siri, just press the button and it's fine that way. So they're the only two things that I have actually disabled. Now, coming on to battery life, as you can see right now, it's on 86%. So if I come into the settings, and we'll take a look at take a look at today's stats, because obviously today is slightly different to the rest of my week so far. And the haptic feedback is really good, but the weird kind of thing is when you're on your actual clock watch and it's in sleep mode and you turn the dial and there's no haptic feedback, that kind of seems really strange. On these kind of menus, it does feel like, not whilst you're holding it like this, but whilst it's on your arm, it feels like you're actually turning a physical cog. Whereas right now, obviously, it's because the vibrations coming from back there, it doesn't quite feel the same. But yeah, so looking at battery life, so just bring it in a little closer. So as you can see, I took it off charge today, roughly around, say, just before 1. We're still on 86% battery and we are at 7 p.m. This last week, I've actually been working nights. So what I've been doing is I've been wearing it to bed. So basically I was finishing at 6 a.m. I'd wear it to bed. Once I got up roughly around 12:01ish, I'd then put it on charge for basically half an hour whilst I showered, had something to eat, and then basically I'd take it off charge. And then basically I'd just wear it throughout the day, go to work, and then put it, same thing again. So the following morning, I would then put it back on charge. Even during the heavy testing, so you know, like the first few days when you get it and you're really excited about the watch, and you're playing about with it constantly, even during those times, the lowest I actually managed to get it to go to, the lowest I actually saw the battery drop down to was actually around about 36%. That's probably the lowest I actually hit. So yeah, for those out there that are probably not using it as much as I do and are wanting to stretch it to 2 days, you can easily do that. You can easily get 2 days battery life out of this. And to be honest, that was the main thing that actually put me off buying one previously, because I didn't want a device. I remember the early iPhone 4 and 4Ss where you had to charge those twice a day just to get through a day, and I didn't want a device that basically did the same thing. So I wanted a device that would last me a minimum of a full day, and personally I thought I was at the stage where I was just going to chuck it on charge at night. But the sleep tracking is something where, because it's, and from what I've actually seen, it literally only decreases by probably about maximum, say, 6-7%. So obviously right now we're on 85. So if I was to use this overnight, in the morning when I woke up, it'd still only be on about 80, or say maximum, lowest would be 78. I think the best I saw was literally 4% overnight that I actually dropped. And for me, that's really good in terms of standby, whilst it is still pulling data every now and then as well. It's not constant, so some people might think that, oh yeah, you turn on sleep tracking and it will literally track everything. It doesn't do it all the time. It'll give you probably intermittently your heart rate as well as breathing pattern and things like that. So yeah, there's that. Now obviously with the Series 6 you do have some of your newish sort of sensors and things like that. So you have your blood oxygen monitoring, you have your heart rate one there, you have I believe this is your blood O2 level, and then at the top here you also have your ECG one. Now I do run these every now and then, but that's literally just for me to try and build up some sort of a record on my health app on my iPhone, because as I said, the main reason why I've actually purchased this was because in recent years I've actually found it more and more difficult to actually stick to a sort of a healthy regimen. So going back a couple of years, so basically going back to around 2017, 2018, I was actually probably at the best shape of my life. And then I had a shoulder injury. Basically, I damaged the rotator cuff on my left shoulder, which meant that basically the training that I did, which was all bodyweight exercise, I couldn't do. Following that, once that actually healed, I then had a sort of knee injury, which then once again stopped me doing bodyweight exercise on the lower body, which basically impacted body weight massively. So I've found it very difficult to try and get back into a routine of being healthy again. And this, what it does do is your rings are such an obvious indication where it's right in your face, and it basically just gives you motivation constantly, where it's not something massive. It's not asking you to go to the gym, it's not asking you to do massive amounts of exercise, but it gives you a really quick glance. And say for example the steps are on 961, it'll motivate me to try and hit that to 1,000 straight away or something like that. And similarly with your stand goals is something that I actually increase quite a bit. because generally at work I'm always walking around anyway. So I mean, 1 minute out of an hour isn't massive, but obviously in the long run it will impact. I will actually do a separate video on the health benefits that I've personally seen in the short time I've had it, but that is accompanied with a couple of other products as well. So what I'll do is I'll make a video regarding those. Coming down to the key kind of things of what it's like to live with. So as I said at the start of the video, I found it a little uncomfortable just getting back used to wearing a watch again. But the watch itself isn't actually uncomfortable or anything. It's literally just the fact that it'd been so many years since I've actually worn a watch on my wrist, and I was basically just banging it everywhere at work. I was literally, you don't even realize. But because I think because of the fact that you then, once you add this on, if I just show you, just pop this back on, it does make it a little bulkier, and the extra bulk is probably ironically what's actually causing me to bump it. But because of that, you do end up whacking it just right on my bone, on the bone of your wrist, mainly because I wear it quite far down, because generally I'm wearing jumpers and sweatshirts, that kind of stuff. So because of that, I tend to wear it quite low down. Other people who wear the watch slightly higher up, they're probably not going to experience this. But for me personally, that's something that first few days it just took a little getting used to. But to be honest, since then it's been great. And basically, as I say, this particular band, it is very, very pricey for what it is, and I have a few replicas coming from China that I'll make a video on once they arrive. But basically, for the comfort it gives you, and the only way you can know this is to obviously compare it to other bands, and I've now tried several other bands. I've tried the Sport Loop, which is good, but I dislike the corners on that, because what I'll do is I'll show you. So when I pop this one on, what tends to happen is, if you notice, when I actually take this off, one side of this will always have a bit more of a bend to it. And what this particular band does is it has really good memory. So what tends to happen is, even if it stretches, so at the moment I'm stretching that quite a bit, and what will happen is that's gone a little bit looser. As I leave this overnight, when I come to put it back on again, it will actually be a lot tighter again. So it will go back to its sort of memory position. And it's a very similar thing with these corners here. So what was happening with the Sport Loop is it doesn't have the same flex just in these sort of regions here. So because of that, what happens is this corner up here especially, and also your bottom corner, you can tighten it, you can get it set right, but it'll always sit slightly crooked because of the fact that the very top of that band doesn't have the flex that this particular band has. Similar with the Sport Loop and all those kind of silicone bands. The reason that I do actually like those is because they're very quick and easy to actually wash down, and basically for the time it takes you to swap out bands on Apple Watches, it's worth having loads of different bands literally just to change up your look and have something different. So yeah, so the Apple Watch Series 6. Now, if you don't already have an Apple Watch, then it's something that I'd probably highly recommend. What I'd probably suggest is don't buy it with the braided loop, for the simple reason that you'll probably get it faster. And also, basically the sizing on these can be a little bit hit and miss, as you will have seen from everybody else's videos. I got very, very lucky in how I ordered it, but to be fair, I did actually get a much more accurate measurement because I used a tape measure as opposed to the printable tool. But yeah, if obviously if the cheaper versions that are coming from China are any good, I don't think they'll be the same sort of quality level as this, because it's just something that you feel. It's you can even feel it between all of the other bands that I've received, where they're okay, they'll do a job, but they're not like this, where this just feels premium, even though it does have a few little niggles. So for example, just there you can see the silver. Just there you can see the silver, whereas on a lot of other bands, and even a lot of cheaper bands, what they have is they go right to the edge. Similarly, just there, so you can see it doesn't quite go to the edge of the curvature. I personally think this has been done on purpose. I think it's been done to actually protect the band corners from fraying and from damage, and also because of the fact that I did mention that this one tends to conform a lot better to your wrist, and I think that's only as a result of that. If they'd taken this all the way to the edge, I don't believe it would have actually fit fit onto your arm and your wrist quite so well. So yeah, that's something that I believe maybe they've done intentionally. It looks really good and it feels really good in terms of the comfort levels, but it's not something that I'd say is absolutely necessary. Now, between this and the SE, I wouldn't actually recommend the SE to anybody. Main reason for that is with any type of gadgets and new electrical products, you always want to get the newest chip. And that's what this one comes down to. All the other sensors and everything that they've thrown into this with the new sensors on the back, they're all a bonus and they will be utilized and they'll be more effective as time goes on. And Apple have shown with, obviously they're still giving support to watches that are 5 years old. So when it comes to support, you don't really need to worry about the SE not being supported, but it's down to the fact that the utilization of all of the sensors within it, as well as the chip, and the chip is the main thing. So on this, everything, my first experience of an Apple Watch is something where everything is relatively snappy. So everything that I go into is relatively fast. Yeah, that's just reminded me. I've not even touched on some of the best features, which is the camera and the Filmic Pro apps, which basically let you control your camera from your watch. But yeah, as I was saying, the chip in these is probably the most important thing, and it's probably the thing that's going to make this particular watch last for 4 or 5 years quite easily, where it doesn't slow down, it doesn't feel sluggish, and they can push features to it, such as the always on display, such as basically all of the other things that you get that you don't get with the SE. Yes, the SE is a good deal, however, it's not something that I would actually recommend to somebody considering the price difference. It's only roughly around probably £100 difference, and for that, basically, you're better off just ditching the band and going for the 6 rather than getting the braided loop with a SE or something like that. So yeah, it's a product that I've obviously waited quite a long time to actually get, but it's one that I couldn't recommend highly enough. It is something, especially for anybody that's health conscious. If you want to either try and become more healthy, get fit again, or if you're already quite healthy and you're into your fitness and everything, then this is a priceless tool in giving you data that you can actually see. And what I'll do is I'll actually make a video on the health app, because I think it's something that doesn't get the credit it probably deserves, and the integration with third-party devices as well, not just Apple Watch and iPhone, but also third-party devices. And as I say, I'll make a video touching on that. So yeah, as I say, Apple Watch Series 6, my first Apple Watch, but it's a product that I absolutely love already. It's not something that I would probably upgrade every year. It's not like I do with the iPhones. I upgrade my iPhone every single year. And the main reason for that is to actually get all the newest camera features and basically the biggest screen, the biggest battery, and basically utilize all the new technologies when it comes to cameras. But with this one, what I'll probably do is, generally with watches, as we've seen from the Series 5 to the Series 6, the upgrades and advancements aren't great enough to probably justify a yearly upgrade. With this, it is something that you can just give to a family member and you can pass on quite easily, and basically it's so simple to set up and basically so easy to actually integrate into your sort of ecosystem if you already have Apple products, and obviously HomeKit products as well, from you can see from my home screen here. So yeah, that's my first impressions of the Apple Watch Series 6. As I say, I wanted to give it a little while before I made a video on this, because I didn't want to just dive straight in first day, because generally everybody loves it once you've settled down and you're just using it day to day. There's so many other things that I've not touched on, the messaging, the emails, all of that kind of stuff, and even the third-party apps. So for example, I did actually save a few screenshots of, despite the fact certain applications, what will happen is, if your phone is locked and there's no app on your actual watch for a particular app. So for example, my doorbell, there is no Eufy app on the Apple Watch. So if I scroll out there is no Eufy app. But what does actually happen is, if you, say for example, your doorbell rings, it'll actually send a push notification to your watch with a picture and message on the watch, giving you details that your doorbell's been rung, despite the fact that there is no Eufy app on here. It's literally just porting that straight across from your phone. And similarly with quite a few other apps, what it'll do is, if your phone is locked and nearby, it'll send the notification to your watch, at work, this has been priceless. I've been able to reply to so many messages, phone calls. I've taken phone calls on this. I can hear them perfectly fine. They've told me that they can hear me perfectly fine as well. I've replied to messages, even though it is a little disjointed in the way that you have to write. It takes a little getting used to, especially if we come down to this sort of area. It does take a little getting used to, so you can actually write out full messages on here. And basically the key to that is literally you're doing one letter at a time. If you are joining up, you do have to make sure it's clear enough to where it'll be able to read it, but you can just do one letter after another, and you don't have to wait for the last letter to clear. You can literally just type straight over the top of it. So yeah, for quick replies and things like that, it's good enough. I've even done more detailed messages, and the Siri dictation is obviously a lifesaver as well when it comes to those kind of replying to messages and things like that. So yeah, Apple Watch Series 6. Only been 2 weeks, but already I absolutely love it. And for anybody out there basically on the fence about whether to go for one or not, you can always wait for next year's model. There's always that thing. You can always, there'll never be an end date to when you can just keep waiting for next year's and next year's and next year's. If it's something that is going to benefit you, then as I say, go for it, because you will absolutely love this device.